Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. I know that I kind of talked about not doing too many things like Goosebumps videos coming up soon. I want to get focused more on doing book reviews for Goosebumps by R.L. Stine. But I came across a box set on Black Friday. I just talked about this in my previous review for Mr. Sardonicus, which I've wanted to see forever. There was another film that I did not realize that William Castle made that was in this box set that I got at FYE. There's 6 films in this. There's a film I've never seen before, the original 13 Ghosts. Yes, there's a original movie, the 2001 film that we all know with Matthew Lillard, or aka Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo live-action films. That movie I've never loved. I like certain aspects to it, kind of like I like the aspects of House on Haunted Hill's remake and the Return to House on Haunted Hill remake thing. But William Castle, man, he's just great. I really like his movies so far. 13 Ghosts is not that great. It's kind of sucky, honestly. It was made in 1960, or released in 1960, something like that. This is one of the more gimmicky type of movies, even though pretty much all of William Castle's movies were very gimmicky when it comes to theatrical experience. One of the cool things about this, they have this thing called like Illusiono, or it's something like that, where you essentially would go into the theater, they'd give you this little cardboard cutout thing. It was not in 3D, because at certain points in the film, in the theaters, not all DVD and VHS releases have this, but my copy did have this, where at certain points the film is no longer in black and white, it's actually shaded red with blue, or blue with red ghosts and stuff that pop up. There's supposed to be 13 inside of this house. We'll get into the plot in a moment, though. I did not have any, like, 3D glasses laying around, but it's not in 3D. If you put, you know, the way it was back in the old days, they had a top layer that was like blue and a bottom layer that was red of this film that you could look through on these little cardboard things they give you when you go into the theater at the time in 1960. You would look through the red lens and it would increase, like, how thick the monsters were, like the ghosts and stuff on the screen, how they were in-depth wise compared to the blue background. When you look through the blue, it would kind of decrease that. And the whole idea from William Castle's intro to the movie is actually that if you look through the top part where it's blue and you don't believe in ghosts, that's where you're supposed to look through. If you actually do believe in ghosts, you're supposed to look through the red one. So I'm assuming when you look through the blue one, it's kind of like, it's lowered the quality of seeing the ghost down so much that it's almost non-existent, and that's kind of boring when you watch a movie. However, on this Blu-ray copy in this box set, if you're curious, like I said, it does show the blue, it does show the red ghosts. The biggest problem that I have is that you cannot see the ghost that well on that blue background. It wasn't filmed entirely correct. I don't think it's a transfer thing. I don't think it's a cleaning up thing with a Blu-ray transfer. It just doesn't look that good. I've talked to a lot of people. I looked at a lot of reviews about this movie. A lot of people said the same things, especially on black and white copies of the film, where the film does not transition to red and blue. A lot of people said that when they watched it in black and white, they couldn't make out the ghost colors and, you know, or like not even the colors, but like the designs of the creatures and stuff. But getting over to the actual plot, why is this a thing like Goosebumps? It's a scary ghost movie. Came out in 1960. A lot of things like this influenced R.L. Stine. I don't know if this specifically did, but if you like some of the other things I've talked about, like Frankenstein, the old Boris Karloff film, or The Wolfman, or anything like that, then you will probably like something like this. 13 Ghosts, for the most part, starts out really great. And then it really declines, and I don't like the middle of it. I think the middle part of the film sucks so bad, it drags and drags. Some parts of the ending don't make any sense to me. It's not that they're complicated or anything, it's just they're not good. You know, not enough for me to actually care and think it through. But the film started out on such a good high note, and it was going so great, and then they just dropped the ball, in my opinion. That is the first time I've experienced that with William Castle. I don't know how common that is amongst the films in this box set or amongst his entire career for that matter. But I loved House on Haunted Hill. I think that's an excellent classic that's held up tremendously well. I think that Mr. Sardonicus, which I just reviewed on the channel, I think that's an absolute classic as well that I adore and love and cherish. It's so great. One of my favorite movies ever right now. This movie doesn't even come close to the quality of those two films. I believe House on Haunted Hill came out in '59. So the year before this movie came out. And then, of course, like I said, Mr. Sardonicus came out the next year, 1961, after this movie. So this is kind of the blank year. There's a lot of comedy in the movie, and I don't think it really did as well as what William Castle was kind of going for. Mr. Sardonicus and House on Haunted Hill are both very serious movies, and I think that's where William Castle really kind of shines. I think he tried something new here with the comedy aspect that kind of speaks up a little bit. It's not a spoof movie, though, in my opinion. It's not really like a black comedy or anything like that. It's just kind of a goofy movie. It's goofier than most movies I've seen from William Castle so far. I was not impressed with this. I was really stoked about the beginning of the movie. I love the premise. If you've seen the 2001 film, you'd be surprised of how many things have made its way into that particular remake. Now, essentially what this is about, you have a family who are very poor. They just pretty much lost everything inside of their house. The movers came in and stole and repoed everything in their house, all their furniture and everything. And their youngest son, the youngest son, who's like 10, I think, they had his birthday party. They had to sit on the ground to eat the dinner and stuff, which was just pretty much cake. They had one present for him. It was a Ghost Stories book. Now the kid has a birthday wish, and he wishes that they could get a house and have all the furniture in the world and everything, and not have to worry about losing everything to the government or anything like that. You know, the American dream. And essentially, the family gets a notice like the next day that, or no, it's the night of, actually. They get a telegram that's basically calling them to go somewhere else, to like a government building. And they're told that somebody, an uncle of the father, as a matter of fact, has died, and that he had a huge mansion, which is really nice. It actually ended up being the Munsters house in the Munsters TV show, by the way. They inherit this big mansion. It's already furnished and everything entirely. And their family just has 4 people. They have the mom and dad. They have the daughter that's supposed to be like 16, but she's like 25 or 28. Really gorgeous woman. And then they have the son that's like 10, who's also good. I think every actor did good in the film. The house also came with a kind of housekeeper lady. She actually played the Wicked Witch of the West, or East, whatever it was from the old Wizard of Oz film, the really well-renowned Wizard of Oz film, you know, with Judy Garland and everything. And she was good here when she had a speaking role every once in a while. They actually nicknamed her the Witch, which was kind of cool as a little reference to back in the day. But the movie is mostly focused around how the man, the uncle that used to own this old house, he used to collect ghosts. And apparently there's 13 ghosts that live in the house. And even the film, when the film begins, I thought it was a really cool intro to the film. You have all the screaming and howling, and you have like a red image of each ghost coming up on the screen really fast like that. And the number above them and everything. But the biggest problem that I see everybody talk about with this movie, that everyone seems to agree with me on, is that there was not enough of the ghosts. The ghosts are not distinct enough to be the title of the film, 13 Ghosts. They're barely in the movie, and when they are, it's not as interesting. You have some ghosts that are played up as comedic aspect, like they make this tiny little Smurf, like, noise. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, they'll pop on the screen. It's clearly like somebody just mumbling gibberish that's sped up in a microphone, you know, an ADR. Some of the ghost designs are awful. Like, there's one guy that's like a cleaver-holding butcher guy, and he has like just a mustache that you can see, and everything else just pitch black, aside from his hat and his clothes, and the cleaver. There's one ghost that was really cool in my opinion. It was in the film for like one time. It was like 2 big red arms holding a red axe, and it swings down and decapitates a red head. And it was awesome. It's freaking awesome. No blood, no gore. One of these old type of black and white awesome family horror film type things that kids could enjoy and families could enjoy and adults could enjoy by themselves at the time. And it was fun. It was really fun. The film has some fun moments, especially in the beginning with all this character stuff that's setting up. There's also a lawyer who's mainly focused on the family's whole thing about getting this house. His name is Ben. The actor who played him I thought was very good as well. I like his whole kind of getting into the family, becoming kind of close with the daughter of the family, and kind of becoming even close with the young boy in the family, just building a friendship with him. Ben is a really cool character in the film. He kind of becomes really important by the end of the movie. But the movie itself doesn't really have anything that's really scary in it. There was a couple of things like the Ouija board scene, if you've seen that. Man, that scene got me. I mean, it drew chills into my back right there when I was watching the film. But yet, the rest of the movie, like I said, the whole middle section, not even the second act, but look, everything after the Ouija board scene just drags, in my opinion. The ghostly effects a lot of the time, especially cleared up on this Blu-ray version, are, you know, strings attached to things, which are fine with me because I think it's charming, honestly. I feel like a VHS copy wouldn't be that obvious. There's a lot of older horror films that use like strings and stuff that I love, like The Screaming Skull. Everybody trashes The Screaming Skull. I love the movie. I don't care what anybody says. But this is just not entertaining, in my opinion. It's just boring. The Screaming Skull is a very slow movie, dealing with a haunted house type thing. And by the end of the film, it scared me so bad. I jumped out of my skin when I watched that movie for the first time. I love the Screaming Skull. I think the Screaming Skull is better than 13 Ghosts. I just do. I don't know how to explain that. I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. This movie is not an entire loss. I think it's worth checking out. It's definitely, in my opinion, better than the remake from 2001, even though that's kind of charming too, because I grew up around that time. I was born in 1994, so by the time I saw that film, which happened to be my cousin's first horror film she ever saw, she got me into watching that at one point. I watched it on like Saturdays when Sci-Fi Channel still used to play like things like Gremlins on Saturdays and things like that on Saturdays, and the good old times of Sci-Fi Channel before they just became nothing. They played Sharknado and stuff. But this movie, that whole like blue and red thing, that was kind of cool. You know, the ghost effects were kind of little wonky. You know, they weren't as great as they could have been. I think it was a little bit of a gimmick that didn't work out in the end, in my opinion. It might have been a lot more cool to see this in theaters at the time. But the character stuff I really liked. Like I said, the film's beginning and end I actually enjoy for the most part. The whole middle is so boring and so bland that it's not worth watching that part of it, honestly, in my opinion. There's not enough happening. There's really nothing really creepy. There's like one jump scare in there somewhere. There's a really weird scene with a cage, if you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. The cage scene I hate, and it goes on and on and on for like 5 or 8 minutes. I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot of time, but when you're watching a movie that's an hour and a half, that's a lot of time focused on a scene that just doesn't go anywhere. It's probably the most cringe-inducing scene in the entire film, and it's probably just more of a kiddish type of, you know, like you talk about like E.T., you know, the Steven Spielberg film being more of like a kid's movie more than it is an adult film, but kind of a family movie at the same time. That scene with the cage in this movie that goes on and on and on forever feels like an E.T. type thing for kids, trying to bring more kids into the audience and stuff. But it feels like when Mr. Sardonicus came out, that William Castle completely changed audiences back to the scary adult type stuff that kids could enjoy too if their parents wanted to let them. But this movie, the gimmick is cool, but that's really it. That's what the whole film is sold on, in my opinion. The idea of the 13 ghosts that are barely focused on at all in this movie really let me down. It was a waste. It was a waste, honestly. And it was a really cool way of doing the ghosts. I don't think I've ever seen that in a ghost film, even from the old movies from back in the day. But, yeah, it really let me down, frankly. I don't know what else to say. 13 Ghosts is not an entire loss, like I said, but it's not good. It's not really great, even. I don't think this one even comes close to holding up to the level of House on Haunted Hill or Mr. Sardonicus, which are both, to me, pretty much masterpiece for William Castle. I know William Castle gets this really bad rap of being like a knockoff Alfred Hitchcock that's just based around shock value and whatnot. I prefer him so far to Alfred Hitchcock easily. I love this movie. Well, not this movie. I love Mr. Sardonicus and House on Haunted Hill tremendously. I think they're fantastic movies. But when it comes to 13 Ghosts in this box set, if I had to rate this on a 5-star basis, as much as I like a lot of William Castle I've seen so far, I've got to say 13 Ghosts for me is like a 2 out of 5 stars. It's really not that special. Even with the cool gimmick, it's not that special, you know? I'm not a big fan of this. I would love to hear people's thoughts down in the comment section down below on what they think about this movie, though. Did you love it? Do you love the remake more? Which one do you prefer? I'd love to hear all that. I want to talk about this movie. I want to talk more about this and Mr. Sardonicus and House on Haunted Hill and all these really cool William Castle films. If you have a William Castle film that you want me to check out that I haven't heard of yet, possibly, please recommend that down below. I'd love to hear some more things that I don't know about this guy. I'm really digging his movies so far. He's making the kind of horror movies that I like. Anyway, put your thoughts down below, guys. Again, 2 out of 5 stars for me. Thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.